Oregon State, much improved football team. Got to their 6th win last week. They're bowl eligible. They're excited. Defensive coordinator, they made a switch there. You can see that they've changed a little bit. Not so much of what they're doing, but certain things I think defensive coordinators like calling. That shows up on the tape. I've always said this is one of the toughest offenses we face with when you think what they can do. They run the ball very nicely. They're multi-dimensional, use a lot of formations, a lot of movement. Tight end package is really good. They throw vertical passes down the field, can make some explosive plays on you. They give you a lot of eye candy. And if you're not in your right, proper gap, they can run the football. They're similar to us. They run the ball for about 228 yards a game. So they can churn some yardage offensively, and then they're capable of hitting the big pass plays. The quarterback does a nice job, plays under center some, with some boots and some waggles. And their defense is one that's taking the ball away. So, they're an exciting football team, I think, when you watch them. Obviously, they're well coached on both sides of the ball. I think Coach Smith does a really good job offensively. They're very, very difficult to defend. So we have our work cut out for us as we go our second road game. And I think our players understand the opponent we're about to face. We've played them now, I think, 4 times since I've been here. I think that's correct. And it's always goes down to the 4th quarter, it seems, with these guys. So we're excited about the opportunity.
Coach Rubino, Devil's Digest. Herm, I know that the word resiliency sometimes is thrown around a little too much in the world of sports, not only football, but is there something to be said about maybe this trait showing up in a win more than any other win this season?
I think if you know the players and the staff that we've assembled here and kind of how this journey has gone along, nothing surprises me. I've been doing it too long that, you're going to hit some lows, and then how do you come out of those? I think that's the testament of a team that believes in each other, the culture of the team, players and coaches and players, however you want to spin it. And I think if you just stay together, you get through those valleys, and there's some peaks. That's football. It happens at every level, professional level, college level. I think how you handle them are very important, and we've been pretty steady when it comes to that. And the players, when you watch them just play, and I think I keep going back to the SC game. I mean, that could have went any way. It was sitting right there in the 4th quarter for somebody to make something happen, and they stayed steady and found a way to make enough plays to win. And this game started out not good. And I thought the score in the 2nd quarter kind of okay. And then they came and kicked the field goal, but okay, we get the ball in the 3rd quarter. And just the sense I had on the sideline of the players watching them, and I was with every group. I was getting around all of them. They were very calm. They weren't like, okay, we're gonna keep playing, coach. We're gonna keep playing, and they did, and they played through it. And then in the 4th quarter, 21-6, and we ended up winning. Made it interesting. Made it very interesting. But that's the longest 3 seconds I've ever seen. And you still get a second left. It's wonderful to be at home, And that's part of it. That's part of the, there's home. Good to be at home. I'll leave it at that.
Chris Cartman, son of a source. Herm, Rachaad White's been great, but also you've been so reliant on him the last couple of weeks. And I know you've been limited with your personnel at some other positions on offense. What kind of challenges have been associated with that, and what do you have to do to kind of broaden out your capability?
Well, obviously, we got to make more explosive plays in the passing game. That has to be a part of it. And, but that number 3 is he's running real hot right now. He's doing good. He's making a lot of plays in the passing game and in the running game, but we have capable players at receiver, 2 more capable backs, and Jaden's done a nice job running the ball as well. He's been a part of it, but we definitely need to make some plays in the passing game. We have to do that. That's important to us, and I think if we can get that going, then things become not simpler, but you got some options. You know, you always want options offensively, and you always want to make defenders defend the field. You know, you got to make them defend the whole field, not just in the box. And I think if you can spread the ball and throw it some, you make them defend the field. So that's important.
Hey, Coach. Martin McClune, 3TV, CBS 5, Arizona's Family. Hey, specifically, I guess just this week, but also looking, at what you guys could do the next 2 weeks with victories and looking at dominoes and how things fall and what the goals were to start the season. How much will you look at those dominoes and look to where, you could be and meet your goals that were there to start the season? And how much do you speak to the team about, where you could end up here at the end of this thing?
I've always talked to the team about this. The most important week is the week you're about to take on, right? And don't get caught up in all that stuff. Just prepare to win. And if you do that, I think it makes things real simple. When you start thinking all this stuff, it just don't worry about that. Just worry about this week. And I think for the most part, these guys have done that. They've understood that we got to get focused on this week. The big picture will take care of itself. And the big picture takes care of itself if you can win. And so how do you win? You prepare for this week. And you don't worry about all the rest of that stuff. There's enough out there that can worry about that stuff. Right? I mean, if they do this could happen. If they did that, if they didn't do this, there's enough of that. We just have to be focused on trying to prepare to beat Oregon State. That's the most important thing. And if you win, it all takes care of itself. So that's kind of always been my process of how I looked at it, because there's nothing else you can do except play this game. There's no other games. This one. This is the most important game. And I said that in the beginning. Most important game is the one you play this week. And if you win, it takes care of itself. So just prepare to win. That's what we're going to try to do.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic. Obviously, the list of injured players seems to be getting longer every week. Out of the players that were not available for the game Saturday, which ones are the ones most likely to be back this week?
Well, that's a good question. I don't want to say because I'm not sure until tomorrow, right? Who can practice in a green jersey, who's got a shot, who's not. And then obviously these Oregon State's listen to my press conference. They don't get everything I say. So that's why I'm going to leave it alone. We're going to show up. We only can play with 11. Sometimes I wish you could play with 12, but we only can play with 11. And we'll get the best 11 out there and we'll go play. I answered your question, but I didn't answer your question. But you know how it works. Okay.
Hey, Coach, in the back here.
Yes, sir.
Zach Keenan, Devil's Digest. 2 years ago, Tyler Johnson was ready to be done with the sport of football.
2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, and then this past weekend he has that fumble recovery, a pretty good game. Is that one of those proud coach moments? Because I know you worked hard to get him back to the team.
Well, I think if you know Tyler, Tyler's just Tyler. And we'll leave it at that. But I'm glad he's here. And he's having a tremendous season. He really is. He's been a big part of our defense since we've been here. And I think his improvement, you guys have watched. He's a big player. He makes an impact for you defensively. You know, and he's always around the ball. He always makes some plays, it just seems like. And he's Tyler. I'll just leave it at that. He's number 41. I'll leave it at that.
Doug Haller, The Athletic. Herm, in regards to the passing game, terrible conditions Saturday. Washington's secondary's pretty good. When you looked at the film, did you see opportunities where you guys missed, or was Jaden's decision-making pretty sound?
I think there's some opportunities out there. But you're right, the conditions, you know, neither team kind of threw it a whole lot because of the conditions. Ball was wet, we saw that. But I also think we had a hot hand running. You know, and sometimes when you get a hand running, you just feel, okay, we got to run it. But you make the point. We have to get some explosive plays in the passing game. And that's, he's got to be able to do that. And I think we run it good enough now that we have an opportunity. We just got to make sure we hit it when the opportunity presents itself. So that's kind of where we're sitting at with that.
Hey, I'm Jack Loader, House of Sparky. The offensive line obviously deserves a ton of credit for how much success you guys have had on the ground. As maligned as that group has been a lot this year with the penalties, how big have they been for you in the running game? Very
good, and Spencer Laval had to play. You know, guy hadn't played a whole lot around. He had to start last week. He had to go in the SC game, and it was a starter this week. And I thought they did a nice job of running the ball and you know, pass protecting too. I think sometimes, you know, when routes don't develop or guys are covered, you know, and the quarterback has to move around, people think, well, the offensive line's not doing a good job. You know, passing is all on timing, and sometimes if guys aren't open or they throw a coverage at us that kind of defends it, the offensive linemen are kind of sitting there. You know, they got a clock in their head too, saying, hey, the ball should be out. And when it's not, then all of a sudden everybody's thinking, well, they didn't protect the quarterback. Well, I don't know about that. It's just maybe they covered us. And so they've done a nice job when you think about how they've played all year. We've been able to run the football, and people know we're trying to run the football. So when you can still do that, that says a lot about them. Now, the back's pretty special, but when you have a special guy, he makes everybody look better, right? And he's playing well right now.
Coach, Prince James Story, Cronkite News. So Darian, he has been an impactful player since he was a freshman.
Butler?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
So what type of legacy, from your words, will he leave behind when his time for playing the ASU is done?
Well, I think when you come in here, and he wasn't a touted five-star guy, you know, he's just kind of Darian Butler, and some people said might not, you know, his stature, he's not 6 foot, you know, he just kind of came in here, and he came in late because he's actually a blue shirt guy. He wasn't, and we said, hey, man, you're going to get an opportunity to compete. In his freshman year, he ends up starting with Merlin, and you've kind of watched him progress from being that little young freshman guy to team captain. And I tell you what, he's having a really good year. But Darian Butler, you watch that guy play? Wow. He shows up on the tape now. He's just a different person. His confidence in pass coverage, blitzing, tackling. You see 20, you watch our tape and you watch him flash. You just see him. He just shows up. Wow. And that's the confidence the guy has. And he understands the defense. He gets guys lined up. We put a lot on his plate. And he's done a nice job. And I think all three of those linebackers, when you think about it, they've played together now for a little while, 34, 20, and 8. And they're all interchangeable. Sometimes Darren's going to have to play Mike. Sometimes when we only play 3 DBs, he's the nickelback. Sometimes he's the will. So he's played all the positions, and he's having a really good year. I can hear you, but I know you got to put it on my.
You had made the comparison, I think, earlier this year, Rashad to Marcus Allen.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, we see Marcus Allen sometimes in the Valley on local golf courses running around. Have you had a chance to talk to him about Rashad and maybe your favorite memory from trying to tackle Marcus Allen?
Well, Marcus was, let me think. I recruited him when he was a freshman. At Lincoln High School when I was at San Diego State my last year. So that's how far we go back. I don't know if then I went to the league, and obviously he came into the league. But I remember when he came to Kansas City, You know, we had kept in contact all that time, but he came to Kansas City with Joe Montana. Should call him Joe Legend. That's what I call him, Joe Legend. And just watching him every day work along with Montana and knowing who he was from high school to USC to the Raiders all those years when I was coaching, you know, with Kansas City, you know, watching his development and just the player he became. But I've whispered at him about 3. I said, hey, you know, I call him Cuddy because he's always used to cut when he got an open field, he'd cut. So, but yeah, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, height-wise, catching the ball-wise, running style a little bit. You know, Marcus was a taller running back, but ran underneath his pad, was a great pass protector too, a great blocker. I think his first year at SC, he actually played fullback. People don't know that. Played fullback. And he was a great blocker, just and a great human being. I mean, just, we've been friends a long time, long time.
Herm, just one more on Darian Butler, and you touched on this, but I remember when Danny Gonzalez was here and he was asked about Darian, he wasn't real convinced that he was that linebacker that they needed in this game because he was undersized. Do you remember what your first impression of Darian was and what you thought he could do at this level?
It didn't surprise me. I mean, now, when he came in as a freshman and just his passion for the game, he wanted to prove himself because he wasn't a highly recruited guy because of that, right? And then we recruited him and told him, well, you know, you got to have this blue shirt deal and you got to wait. And then it kind of worked out. And he came to camp and was like, uh-oh. And about the first week or two, I'm looking and, you know, AP's coaching linebackers and I'm going, that dude number 20 is kind of interesting. He said, yeah. And then I said, the number 8's kind of interesting too. I go, yeah. And then as we kept going, before you know it, the season started, I said, we're going to start 2 freshmen at linebacker. We put him in there. And you guys are watching play. I mean, it's just, his whole body has changed too. You know, he's a different player. He's just a different, and that comes with confidence and studying. And, you know, he's always going to be that guy that has to try to prove himself, right? Because he's not the biggest guy, not the, you know, all I know is that when the ball gets thrown or they run it, Butler's around. The Butler shows up, right? He just shows up. And that's bottom line. And that's what, when guys watch him on tape, they go, who's 20? He's a good player. I mean, the scouts come in there and go, man, I just needed to see him in person. And they look at him and I go, Sam Mills. I know. It's just, and they all sit there and they try to say, wow, I love the way this guy plays. I said, yeah. I said, just, you know, understand. Okay. And they all look at him and watch him. So it'll be interesting when the season's over with and, you know, kind of where he stacks up.
Herm, I think this was the 4th straight game the defensive line did not have a sack. Is that a product of just having different guys in there, or are you concerned at the little bit of lack of pressure or getting to the quarterback?
Well, we're getting some pressure. I think sometimes when we look at sacks, you know, you want to knock the quarterback down. You want to get to him. We're hitting him. We're moving him off his spot. But you're right. You'd like some more sacks, but we're getting close. And there's a lot of guys in there playing. Some young guys. I mean, we're just trying to throw bodies in there because of some injuries and everything else. But they're doing a pretty nice job. They really are. And I just think if you can make the quarterback get off his mark, off his spot, and move him, sometimes, you know, it's not because it's a sack, but it's like, okay, you watch the tape and they're working at it, and we just got to keep rolling them in there and keep working.